Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first official, unofficial zero session of 13 cards subject to change. My name is Zach Bouchard. With me, as will be always, is Leroy Britton. And basically, this is a zero session, we like to call it. It's something that we're going to basically use about a half hour of your time. Hopefully you last that long with Leroy, because I have to. What's going to end up happening is Leroy and I are going to take a little bit of time here, and we're going to explain ourselves, explain what this is, and introduce ourselves to you guys, give yourselves a little give you all a little background of ourselves, and then hopefully we're going to turn around and have some fun, and maybe get into a topic or two. Like I said, this will be about 30 minutes. In the future, we're looking at shows to be about 60 minutes long. Leroy and I... say hi, Leroy. Make sure people actually know you're here.
Yeah, I am. There actually is another person sitting here. It's not just Zach talking to himself. He does love to hear his own voice, but hey, if you know him, you know that.
You know what's funny? I actually don't. To be honest, I think I've actually learned that I don't talk too much. I think I just talk too much for most people because we live in a society now where people don't like to have a conversation. It's all text message.
Yeah, it's true.
But anyway, back to the show.
I do it myself.
Anyway, everyone, welcome to 13 cards subject to change. Leroy and I both decided at work one day, both met at work about 3-4 years ago now. And Leroy and I decided that we were both, not decided, we were both wrestling fans, and we got into it. Leroy ended up joining my Facebook group that I'm an administrator of based out of Philadelphia, the Pro Wrestling Lounge. We'll have a bunch of those guys on the show at some point.
And then I got to introduce Zach to the independent wrestling scene in the area because he hasn't experienced that yet. And
I knew it was around. I just never got, never had a chance to go because, I'll be honest, I'll be honest, I didn't travel to a lot of things for a while, and, that obviously changed when we got into the indie scene. Anyway, so quick backstory on the two of us here. Thanks, everyone, by the way, for watching or listening. So basically, here's the deal. We are going to come up with a podcast. Right now, I think we're shooting for one show a month, I believe, is the plan. We're going to do a bunch of research and all that stuff. Right now, we are currently quarantined in the current world situation that if you don't know, you're, pretty uninformed, in my opinion.
Or living under a rock living under a rock.
There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, the comedy stylings of Leroy telling the joke twice.
Sorry.
Anyway, so to start out, my name is Zach Bouchard. I'm 28 years old. I started watching wrestling consistently in about 6th grade. My first ever episode was Paul Heyman SmackDown. It was an episode where Eddie Guerrero was told by Chavo not to come out for a match against the world's greatest tag team. And Eddie basically showed up anyway in his lowrider with a lawn chair and a beer helmet. Rest in peace, Eddie. We all miss you. Anyway, that was my first thing with wrestling that allowed me to consistently watch because I figured out the time slot and all that stuff. I've been watching wrestling on and off for many years. Obviously, Rock and Stone Cold were just such big people. You couldn't get around without stuff happening. And of course, stuff was on TNT, so you knew what you were watching. There were pictures for it during the Monday Night Wars. There were promos and all that stuff. I obviously knew who Hulk Hogan were and Randy Savage. They were in cartoons all the time. They transcended things and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, consistently I've been watching since about 6th grade. I don't remember the year off the top of my head. But anyway, just to let you know, a lot of my analysis is going to come from a lot of research that I've done because I've gone back and I've watched all the old school stuff, ECW, WCW, NWA, Mid-South Wrestling, all that kind of stuff. I've gone back and I've researched a lot of that, done a lot of my own personal watching, but yeah, that's where a lot of my analysis is going to come from. Again, we're going to say this multiple times. This is a fan podcast. We have a Facebook page that's now live. YouTube channel going to be coming up here as well, where we're going to do some fun stuff. We have a bunch of buddies that are involved in the show. You're going to meet them at some point. But yeah, hopefully we're going to get a bunch of people on the show. I want to say this about maybe half a dozen times, if not more, throughout this zero session that. This is a fan-based podcast, and if you have a comment, if you have a concern, if you don't like my analysis or Leroy's analysis, or you just think Leroy, if you ever can see a picture of him, looks like a troll, you are more than welcome on the show to be a part of the show and talk with us. You are more than welcome on the show to give your own opinions, be part of topics. There'll be ways you can contact us to be on the show. We'll fit you in where we can. Some shows will just be us talking about analysis and stuff of shows around the world from all companies, both indie and major league. So hopefully that'll be something that we can get in whenever we can with whoever wants to be on the show. We have a lot of friends that want to be on it. We obviously have our friends that are a part of the show, and a lot of friends outside of it that want to.
We
be
get a
on
lineup.
So anyway, Leroy, your experience with wrestling goes back to
AWA, Vern Gagne, and I don't know if I look like a troll. More of a lawn gnome if I put that red hat on because I got the beard going. But
30 minutes, Leroy.
Yeah, I know. That's all they need to know, and they'd be like, oh my God. But yeah, I mean, I watched Vern Gagne, Greg Gagne. I mean, when Hogan was young, when Flair was young, when Andre was still alive. I mean, just way back then, I watched the old school wrestlers where it was more in the ring instead of high flyers. I mean, there wasn't too many high flyers till, we got into Macho Man and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. They more jumped off the top rope and stuff like that. But
which was sort of the beginning of all that, honestly.
Oh, yeah. It wasn't for them, we wouldn't have what we have today. But I watched it, on and off. Saturday's main event was a big thing when I was growing up. And then, transitioned when I moved in, because I unfortunately lived in the country, didn't get cable, and I moved into town in the 90s and got into the middle of the Monday Night Wars with WCW and WWE and WWF back then. They changed or whatever.
I don't know if we're allowed to use that because of the lawsuit. We'll have to look into the
well, yeah,
that.
Somebody, PETA or somebody will yell at us for it.
It's actually World Wildlife Fund, but we're not going to get into a Twitter war with PETA.
No, we don't want to do that because it'd be just messy.
They're really bad at Twitter, honestly. It's kind of annoying.
The opposable thumbs. But yeah, I mean, then I started doing that, and then I trailed off a little bit, but I started watching the hardcore again and independent scenes. I've been to, I don't know how many before Zach. I went to quite a few, and now I've been to quite a few afterwards. Just enjoying it. I mean, as a fan, enjoying it and loving it and sharing with my two lovely children, and they have become to really enjoy and love wrestling almost as much as me.
Now, for those of you who might be wondering the name of the show, 13 Cards Subject to Change, Cards Subject to Change is kind of just an old thing in wrestling, kind of an old school term because wrestling is so unpredictable. Whenever they used to promote wrestling shows coming to Duluth back at the old Deck Arena, the Cards Subject to Change thing was on the bottom, and basically that means is you might see these wrestlers, you might not, because they work 300 days a year, and Lord knows what's going to end up happening.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And they're going to end up getting hurt, and all that stuff is subject to change. 13 actually comes from a interview segment that we were doing on video, which was the beginning of this podcast. And there's a little story behind that. So there's a local wrestler here in Minnesota known as Darren Corbin. We'll have him on the show a bunch of times, hopefully. Darren that is actually his name. He didn't steal it. He's not copyrighted by anything. He likes to make sure that people know that. Darren's going to be on the show multiple times. We've done a lot of stuff with him since. A lot of fun. Basically, what ended up happening was I saw Darren at our first Heavy On show together, me and Leroy. I believe it was
Love Lost.
No Love Lost 2.
No Love Lost 2, yeah.
If you're Darren, it was 1, but Darren sometimes loses count. He's been on so many shows for Heavy On.
Definitely.
But anyway, so what ended up happening is I saw Darren perform, was immediately immersed by this guy, and he's just so interactive, such a great guy in terms of what he does with the fans. Although some of you fans out there are not his favorites, but your opinions don't really matter to him sometimes, but that's all.
No, they definitely don't.
He'll be on to explain that a little bit later on future episodes, hopefully. But anyway, I hit up my buddy Eric, who was involved with Heavy On Wrestling at the time. He'll be on the show a couple times as well. He's got some stuff sort of brewing in the future that will lead into here in the future. But anyway, I asked him if Darren would be willing to do an interview, and he said, "Hey, hit him up on Facebook personally." Darren's always good at that. So I sent Darren a Facebook request, and it was like 5 minutes later he had hit me up and accepted it. And so I just sent him a message, and we got to talking. We said, "Hey, we want to do an interview?" And he was like, "Sure." And I wanted to do it in person. I wanted to sort of stand there and have a reaction from him on questions I was going to ask. And so we ended up doing it at a show called Grand Slam 2, which was put on by MAW, Midwest All-Star Wrestling here in Minnesota, that we will be promoting in the future. Our buddy
Definitely.
Dave is an owner-operator of the promotion, and it was a charitable event for his place called Women of Nations, which is a battered women's shelter down in the cities. Very great, wonderful organization, does some really amazing things.
Oh, yeah.
And we were happy to go down and support for charity with that. And so what ended up happening was Leroy, I said, hey, Leroy, do you want to be a part of this interview? And Dave, by the way, I just want to let people know out there, was an absolute angel saint. I can't praise him enough for what he did. He never told us no, and he was running the damn thing from start to finish and was just absolutely so into us whenever we would say hi or whenever we asked questions about getting the interview and all that stuff.
I think the best thing out of that, too, is going to a few shows. He looked at us and said, you know what, guys? You're part of the family. You're part of the MEW family, and
that took 2 shows, I think.
That felt. I know. I just have to,
that.
and it felt. I mean, it was like, wow, this is awesome. I feel so appreciated.
We're now basically officially on their ring crew. Obviously, right now with the current world situation, there are no current shows going on, which is disappointing. But we'll talk about that in a little bit here. But no, he let us have an interview with Darren, and that was about a half hour. That interview was filmed.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, that interview was filmed, and that will be up on our Facebook page here. As soon as we can find it, and you guys will be able to see a couple interviews from that show with Dave. Austin Arrow was also on there. Leroy's currently wearing that shirt. We will have him on the show very soon because let's be honest, he's got nothing else going on with all these shows getting canceled.
And then we can see how many more views we can get of this video. We had quite a few of them already.
Oh, it was so good. Anyway, but no, that was probably the most perfect experience I've ever had at a show. I mean, we got backstage access, locker room access with a bunch of guys. There was an interview there with D'Lo Brown, which was a lot of fun. We'll have that up here in the future.
And that was improv. I mean, we were trying to line up one with Animal LOD. Everybody else couldn't work out with him.
And who else?
And Paul. Okay, I'm sorry. I just remember it. But Paul was there.
Paul Ellering was there.
He was there, and it didn't work out, and it just was throwing a curveball and say, "Hey, how about D'Lo?" Duh. Yes.
Of course.
Oh yes. And then doing the interview, and then having Ken Anderson in the locker room too, and having a couple stories that he was saying before we started the interview.
We'll get into that later on.
It's just incredible. Yeah. I mean,
but anyway, so part 2 of the story comes a few months later. We end up going to Fortune Mania 2.
Yeah,
I believe it was. Yeah, and the Icon Sting was there. Booker T was there. A lot of great legends from yesteryear. But what we ended up doing was we set up an interview with JDX, Justin D. Xavier, and he is another independent guy from here in Minnesota who is, at the time, he was in the business for like 2 years.
Yeah, which is
and
2 years, not much.
God, you watch this guy wrestle and you're like, you have everything, sir. I mean, good Lord, watching him is like watching poetry in motion.
And I believe at that time didn't he have 2 belts or 3 at that time?
I believe at the time he was a table for 3. He had
I was thinking 2.
He had 2 belts. So anyway, Justin, we set up the interview. He was an absolute fantastic interview, great time. Justin was great with us, JDX, of course. And what ended up happening was I printed out questions for Justin, and I did the same for Darren. And now I like to do bullet points. I don't like to write out a script. That's not fun to me. It doesn't seem real. It's kind of rough and not as fluid. And what ended up happening was I had printed out the sheet of paper for Justin. Last minute, of course. I believe that show was on a Saturday. And on Fridays when I printed it out, and I totally left that to the last minute. Leroy still doesn't know that story, but now he's giving me a look of like, really, after all that? Anyway, so...
Well, it was worth it. You did a good job. It was quick.
What ended up happening was I printed out the questions, and I realized there were 13. Now, I still had the 8x11 sheet of paper from Darren's interview, which was still in the vanilla folder, by the way. I took that out, and I found out we had the same number of questions for JDX as we did Darren, 13. And I don't really know what that meant. I wasn't trying for that. I was just trying to get as much information as I could down, and just some nice talking points. And so JDX is probably the official first interview for 13 cards subject to change. Darren Corbin was the first official interview for the PWL. Obviously, again, the Pro Wrestling Lounge on Facebook, based out of Philadelphia. I'm an administrator along as is Gene Crossing, Aaron Bowles, and Marcus Gold. If I said you guys' name wrong, again, I've only known these guys through Facebook, but they're like family. They're going to be on the show.
Great guys.
Yep, they're going to be on the show as well in the future. But the Pro Wrestling Lounge, go find us on Facebook. We have live coverage of all events from AEW to NXT to WWE, New Japan as well. We do threads live for people's shows. We like to post a bunch of stuff about current wrestling, past wrestling.
And right now, they just tried it out the other night. They're doing a Zoom broadcast, and they're doing it live on Facebook, so you can see and listen to a few of the members discuss, quite a few different things. And we had a blast the other night when we were doing it.
So anyway, so basically, we just came up with a podcast, and it took us a while to get to it, but Leroy came up with the equipment. I did pay a portion to Leroy. I'm not sitting here using this stuff for free, ladies and gentlemen. I did pay a good price for a good portion of this. And basically, I've been looking to do a podcast for a while, and Leroy was like, that sounds like an absolute blast, and he was all for it. We are currently recording from the quarantined area of Leroy's kitchen, and his two kids are outside playing Minecraft.
And I did make some brownies and some banana bread. And as Zach knows, I baked a few times and brought it to work. I don't do too bad of a job.
You really don't.
Yeah.
But anyway, a lot of ramblings are going to happen on the show, so stay with us there, folks. We're going to get to the wrestling, obviously. A little more tight-lipped wrestling talk in future episodes. Like I said, this is a zero session, I like to call it. And what we're doing, again, is it is a fan-based podcast. We survive because fans want to talk about wrestling, because we're fans. There's going to be a ton of wrestling topics, hopefully, when they get back to live shows. But basically, again, I'm going to say this as many times as I can on the zero session. You want on the show, you have an opinion, get in touch with us personally, and we'll put you on the show. Leroy's equipment picks up Facebook Messenger just fine. We can call you, exchange numbers, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, anytime, we will set up a time, we'll get you on the show, and it'll be a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, it will definitely be. And, I was like, if you hear background, it is my kids. Eventually we'll get this without any kids around, or I'll soundproof my kitchen, which will be kind of interesting. I don't know if I want to spend that much money, but it might be fun.
You've already spent enough money on the kids. Spend a little more to get rid of them.
No, just ship them off to their mother and they'll be all right.
There we go. So, so that's kind of how the show came about. Obviously, the Pro Wrestling Lounge was a big kicker to that. Leroy has enjoyed it since he got there. Leroy, the Lounge has been a very big safe haven for me for the last many years I've been a part of it. Little thoughts on the Lounge before we move on?
Well, I think it's great to just connect with so many different people that are wrestling fans that, are around. I mean, so diverse. I mean, I said I was talking to him last night, and there was a few of us in different age range. I was one of the oldest of there talking about wrestling, and it was just a blast. And none of us... we didn't hate anybody's opinions. We laughed and we joked and we had a blast about it. And, I'm so glad that I was able to join into that and be part of it for a few whiles. And been about 2 years now. And God knows what's going to be next. And these guys are all waiting for us to have another outlet for them to listen to or whatever, comment, and say, oh my God, he got me guys are talking like that.
A lot of personality is going to be coming out of that.
Oh, it's
coming out of that.
It's going to be fun. Oh yeah, it will be.
So again, to explain for people, we're going to be about as PG as we can. I know that's kind of a dirty thing to say in wrestling right now. Everyone's kind of angry about that, but basically our version of PG is we're going to stretch it about as far as we can legally push those limits.
Oh yeah, we'll stretch it like a good pair of pants that you don't want to throw away because they're still good, and you're ripping at the seams.
As you can all tell, Leroy's going to be referring to himself as fat many times because, well, that's great.
Mine they're broken in really well.
Fair enough. So anyway, we have a little bit of time left, so we're going to sort of give you guys a taste of what we are going to do in the future here. I know for a fact that we are all dealing with the current situation around what's going on in the world right now. A lot of people can't leave their homes, and a lot of things just are going on. But WrestleMania 36 is now done and gone. It was the first WrestleMania too big for one night. Obviously, this is a wrestling podcast that's going to be very open, honest, and going to say what we're going to say. And the truth is that we know why it was too big for one night. But,
definitely, yeah.
Leroy, obviously no fans, bit of a different situation going on. Your thoughts on it? And, So 4 out of 5. What would you give night one? And I mean, you can go into night one a little bit if you want.
I'll give night one about 4.5, and I said the biggest reason why is the couple matches. The end match with Undertaker and AJ, the Boneyard match, that was good. A couple matches they had set up beforehand, they were good. And then second night, I didn't think it was as good. Some decent matches. I give it about 4. So, averaging on about around 4.5 for both nights. The Firefly Funhouse match is like a tongue twister.
I'm gonna make you say that like 5 times in a row on a future
I know,
show.
and then maybe I'll get it right this next time then.
I doubt it.
But that one was Cena and Bray. I mean, that was great. I mean, I enjoyed that. The kids enjoyed that. My son loved the Undertaker match. He's become a big Undertaker fan after seeing the live shows where I actually had an audience. I'm like, watch this. And he was like, oh my God. I'm like, yes, this is awesome, and this is why I watch it. But yeah, that's what I felt. I mean, I'm looking forward to maybe a next one. Hopefully there'll be people next time.
Yeah, right.
But I doubt that.
For me, night one was probably the better night. I don't know why I felt that way. First of all, Boneyard match. One of the best things, if not the best thing, I've seen them do in about 5 to 10 years, I would say. It was just so well put together. And obviously, I'll go into my analysis on a future show here, on a later date. But for me, I would give night one a 4 out of 5. And then I would give, honestly, night 2 for me was a 3.5. Nothing really against other performers of night 2. I just thought that certain things were not as put well together. Obviously, I'll be in. We'll go maybe match by match, night by night later on. But the thing about it is for me is that, but again, for the circumstances they were in, from going from a 70 to 80,000 person show to no people except for like camera crew and guys who were jumping out of the way. If you look closely, there's some stage guys who were like, I'm not supposed to be in this shot. But,
that 2 ring announcers is like, oh, we got like that people. It's just
I miss JBL on commentary. I don't care what anyone says.
I know
he's funny on commentary.
He's great.
If you can find the 3 videos on YouTube of him commentating the Brothers of Destruction versus MVP and Mr. Kennedy, it's the greatest announcing night in my life. He was so good during that match. I loved it so much.
Yes.
But anyway, okay, so now Leroy, we got, like I said, a little more time here. We're going to go, one more thing I want to ask you about is, what did you think about the fact that wrestling is continuing without fans? A couple minutes on that. What do you think?
Well, it's a good thing. I mean, there's not much going on right now. I mean, I'm a big football nut. I love football and I love sports, but there's nothing on. I mean, wrestling, the only thing out there is to entertain you and stop thinking about things. I mean, that's what I did even before all this quarantine was going on. It was my time to get out and relax and say, oh, something to not think about, what was going on in life and just enjoy it. I mean, I miss it with the big crowds, but, at least it's still going. And hopefully by the end of summer, maybe we'll have more crowds around or something like that. I don't know, but it makes it nice. I mean, instead of not having any sports whatsoever. So, all right, we had to pause for a second, but here he's back. The lovely choice of doing this at home. But
Anyway, so I guess a couple quick thoughts on that is, because again, I'll expand on this later on, but a couple of thoughts for me are just, look, the show must go on, and I don't fault Vince McMahon for continuing on. I really don't. I know there's some people who are like, oh, it's not safe. Oh, it's against this, against that. Look, like I said, I'm going to probably come off more as a Vince defender than most people, and I think that I'm going to get a lot of heat for that. But I'm going to come from, I understand the backstage politics a little more than I think people want to understand. I'm not saying people don't get it. I just think people don't care about it more often. And I tend to lean more towards people. Look, things are what they are. Vince is required by USA to put on a certain number of Raws per year. He's required by Fox to put on a certain number of SmackDowns per year. And, it's 52 shows a year per brand. And the thing about it is, for me, is that AEW also does no fans in their arena. I think both companies have done good and bad things. We'll go into that a little bit later. on a future episode of what I think they've all done right, they've all done wrong. But the truth is, I'm just glad AEW has been able to do shows, even though they haven't been that good. Leroy is like a small kid on Christmas, waiting for me to get into my future rants about how I feel AEW has started their interesting career. But the thing about it is, for me, is like I feel like both shows are different, but at the same time they're both kind of the same thing. There's nobody in the audience, and you're trying to do the best thing that you can with what you've got. And I'm going to close with I think wrestling has been an absolute joy in my life, and when you have a world where there is no other distraction, because there can't be, which I agree with our elected officials. We're not going to get into politics very often on the show. We're going to make political jokes because let's just get this straight. We all hate politics in a certain way. We're going to make jokes. Leroy and I have no affiliation either way with who we're voting for, this or that. I'm going to be very blunt, very honest, and I like to say realistic, optimistic about things. That's my view on things. I'm going to give my opinion, and it's never going to be based on anything other than what I believe in. If you have a problem with it, that's fine. But like the truth is I'm going to sit here and I'm going to say to y'all, this is how I feel. This is the joke I'm going to make. If I make a joke about Donald Trump, I'm going to make a joke about Donald Trump. So does everybody else. I don't care.
Well, yeah, he brings it on all himself.
Exactly.
Says,
but I'm also going to make jokes about Hillary Clinton. I hate them all. It is what it is.
Politics suck.
But the thing about it is, for me, is like it's a nice removal from where we are. It's a nice little sort of difference in opinions. People still get to see their thing. They still get to do what they want and everything. But like I said, we'll go into a bigger topic on this a little bit later. Obviously, this is just kind of us giving you a taste of what you can look forward to on more structured shows. This was more of just, like I said, a zero session, hello, hi to the world type of deal. Like I said, Facebook page, you can go like us, 13 Cards Subject to Change podcast on Facebook. It's just a simple like. You can contact us there. YouTube page is up soon. We're going to be posting some videos there. The plan behind the YouTube page is more so that's where a lot of our friends who are parts of the show can post videos and stuff, and can sort of have different views on things if they want to go live and do instantaneous reactions. But the podcast will be up on the YouTube page shortly after the free service, which Leroy's going to look into here in a little bit. This will go directly to YouTube once it's been edited and finished. But yeah, we look forward to hearing from fans, hearing the comments. Like and subscribe us on Facebook, and like and subscribe us obviously on YouTube as well. And hopefully we'll be able to continue to bring you guys some great content on all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, if we can, lucky enough to get 1,000, get 1,000, subscriptions. That'll be impressive. That might take a little time.
That might take some time, but anyway. So yeah, I mean, like I said, look, wrestling is supposed to be a difference of opinion. A lot of people don't like WWE. A lot of people love it. We want to hear everyone's opinion. We want you on the show. If anyone out there ever posts, hey, you haven't gotten me on the show, look, we will get you on the show. We're just going to have to figure out a time frame that works for everyone involved. We'll be contacting you almost instantaneously about putting you on the show. We're going to have topics for you, all this other stuff. But the thing about it is, for me, is that I think people need to understand that this is a fan-based podcast. And I've said that before, and yes, I might be repeating myself, but I want this particular thing to get into everyone's heads. It's a fan-based podcast. We're fans. We don't have any real affiliation with the business other than working for some indie companies around the area. We have no affiliation with big television companies. But if you have an opinion, comment on YouTube, comment on Facebook. That's great. But if you want to be on the show, nothing's going to stop you. We have a long list of people from indie wrestlers to some actual, I think, professional people we can probably get on the show depending on the contact.
Most likely,
and then just our friends and family who want to be on the show. But the thing is that we're definitely going to want you guys to be on the show. It's going to be a great time. And if we disagree, that's great. It's called good content. That's what wrestling is supposed to give you, is a lot of good and bad content.
Yeah, and if I start being more pro toward WWE, that's Vince's give me money. I don't think that's ever going to happen, but hey, if it would work out, I need some extra money.
He might give you money to go away, but he's not
maybe probably that, do it away. Leave me alone, leave Stephanie alone. Just give me Mandy Rose and I'll be all right.
I think Hunter's going to probably have more of a problem with Stephanie than his.
I know, and then I mean a sledgehammer. It's not pretty.
So anyway, like I was saying, thank you guys so much. This has been an absolute pleasure and a joy. We're about 2 minutes left here on this particular session. We didn't want to take up too much time. We just want people to get a nice introduction to the two of us. All I have to say is if you've made it this far, thank you so much. Listening to Leroy can sometimes get bad after 5 minutes. It's a little rough.
Yeah, but I think you've been talking more than me.
Well, that's going to happen a lot on the podcast.
I know, it might.
So you know what, we're going to find out how that works out in the future. But the last couple seconds here, I'm going to say, like, subscribe us, please be a part of this. We would love to have your opinions. We'd love to have you on the show. But in all seriousness, though, Leroy is a very good friend of mine, one of my best friends in the world, and. Be honest, there's not a lot of people that there's a lot of people that I've tried to do this with, but there's not a lot of people ultimately I'd probably want to end up doing this with. I mean, you've been a great guy to me since I met you. It's been a lot of fun, and like I said, this is not necessarily to make money. If we do, that's awesome. But if not, this is more for just kind of the two of us, and hopefully, friends and family can be a part of it as well. This is just a fun little outlet for us.
Oh, yeah, it's something extra to do, and besides working and all that stuff. I mean, it's great, and I totally agree with you. I mean, I'm glad I was able to do this with you and get this going. So,
and basically, my whole thing is, like I said, you're welcome on. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So I just want to point out, we are not currently advertised. We're not being paid to do any of this. We're just doing this on our own time for fun. And can't wait to do it in the future. We're going to come up with a bunch of segments for you guys. The layout of the show is not going to be so structured that it's going to be the same segments every single hour show. Certain things will go away, certain things will come back type of deal. But thank you all so much for listening. This is Zach and Leroy signing off for our 0 session. Can't wait to hear you guys in the first official session. And thank you all so much for listening. And I hope everyone is safe out there. Thank you so much.